Think back to the last time you had a blowout argument with someone important to you. The tension in the room grew so thick, you could cut it with a knife. The other person stood right in front of you, veins popping in their neck, screaming, "Why do you always go so quiet? Say something. Stop running away." And what did you do? You just stood there, staring blankly into empty space. Your throat burned and tightened, as if someone had poured quicksand down your vocal cords. All you could manage was a hollow, "I'm fine," while deep down every cell in your body was violently begging, "Please, just leave me alone." Then you turned your back, locked yourself in your room, and left the other person losing their mind, convinced you were using silence to punish them. The truth is, in that exact moment, you weren't being cold. You weren't some arrogant mastermind using the silent treatment to manipulate their emotions. Something much more devastating and profound was happening beneath that motionless exterior. Something the whole world, and perhaps even you yourself, has entirely misunderstood. If you are the kind of person who, whenever deeply hurt, instinctively retreats into your shell and slams every communicative door shut instead of screaming or explaining yourself, then welcome home. Today, you are going to see yourself clearly and nakedly for the very first time. We are going to tear apart the deep psychology of those who go dead silent when their heart bleeds. Society is quick to label this trait as heartless or emotionally stunted, but science calls it something else entirely. Walk with me to the very end of this thought. I promise you, what you are about to realize will permanently alter how you treat yourself from this day forward. Let's start with the greatest lie people have ever attached to your character. They assume that when you go quiet, it is a conscious, calculated decision. They believe you sat down, coldly weighed your options, and strategically threw a power move called silence right into their face. But you and I both know that isn't what is happening inside you at all, is it? When a verbal dagger or a hurtful action crashes into you, your body undergoes an invisible yet violent seismic shift. It isn't loud. It feels like the quiet, definitive click of a heavy door slamming shut inside your chest. Suddenly, words become a completely alien language that you cannot physically reach. Your chest turns to lead, and the mere thought of opening your mouth to articulate your tangled emotions feels genuinely impossible. This isn't you being stubborn or defiant. This is your nervous system executing the exact primitive survival mechanism it was designed to perform. Dr. Peter Levine, one of the world's leading researchers on psychological trauma, has proven that when humans face extreme distress, we don't just have fight or flight. We also have a third instinct hardwired into our DNA, the freeze response. Neuroscientists have scanned the brains of people experiencing emotional flooding. They discovered that Broca's area, the region responsible for producing speech, actually diminishes in activity and essentially goes offline. So when someone is standing right in front of you, cornering you and demanding that you speak immediately, you aren't deliberately trying to make their life difficult. Your brain has literally pulled the emergency brake. It automatically severs the connection to language because it is diverting all its energy toward one urgent mission, keeping you from shattering into a million pieces right then and there. You aren't pushing people away. You are desperately holding yourself together to avoid free falling into pure panic. There is a massive difference between those two things. But the story doesn't end with basic biology. You weren't born with this habit of swallowing your pain whole. No newborn baby stays silent when they are hungry. No toddler hesitates to throw themselves on the supermarket floor, screaming and crying without shame. Children express their pain loudly and unapologetically, until someone teaches them that showing emotion is a punishable offense. Dig through the dusty drawers of your earliest memories. Was there ever a heartbroken little child who ran home wanting nothing more than to cry in someone's arms, only to be barked at with "Stop crying right now. It's not a big deal. Why are you so sensitive?" Or a teenager who gathered every ounce of courage to expose their rawest vulnerabilities, only to have that secret turned into a joke at the dinner table the next day, or worse, weaponized against them in a future argument. Perhaps you did try to open up once, but instead of empathy, you received moral lectures, cold eye rolls, or the gut-wrenching realization that your pain was seen as a burden. And so, In a completely logical and instinctual move, you evolved. You adapted by wrapping your heart in a thick layer of permafrost. You became silent not because you stopped feeling, but because feeling out loud had consistently cost you way too much. Psychologist John Bowlby, the pioneer of attachment theory, built his legacy on one brutal truth. The way we handle our pain today is a direct mirror of what we received from our earliest relationships. When those early bonds planted the toxic seed that vulnerability equals danger, your nervous system never forgot that lesson. Decades later, even in front of a partner who genuinely loves you, that ancient defense system automatically engages. Your silence, therefore, is never a character flaw. It is a survival armor that the younger version of you had to forge with their own bare hands just to make it through the darkest days. And let's acknowledge one thing right now. It did its job perfectly. It kept you alive to see today. But here is the truly astonishing part that almost no one understands about you. While the outside world sees a cold, apathetic stone wall, deep inside your mind, a Category 5 hurricane is raging. A massive volume of data is being processed at breakneck speed. While the conversation spirals out of control, and the other person's emotions splatter everywhere, your brain is operating at 200% capacity. Neuroimaging studies show that in people who go quiet under stress, the brain regions associated with self-reflection, analyzing memories, and predicting outcomes light up significantly brighter than average. That silent exterior is actually a supercomputer, running through dozens of high-stakes scenarios at once. Did I say something wrong? Where have I felt this suffocating feeling before? If I speak now, will my words de-escalate the situation, or throw gasoline on the fire? You are not avoiding the problem. You are putting the problem through an intense pressure test from every angle, before allowing a single syllable to escape your lips. To you, speaking before you truly understand your own emotions is a reckless gamble. You would rather swallow your own blood than spit out meaningless words. People look at a still lake and assume nothing is happening beneath the surface. But only you know that still waters run agonizingly deep. Here is a heartbreakingly beautiful truth about you that very few notice. Half of your silence is specifically designed to protect the very people you love. At the bottom of that fresh wound, there is a monster of rage and shattered glass. If you opened your mouth in that exact moment, what would pour out wouldn't be constructive dialogue, but poison-tipped daggers and words that could permanently damage the relationship. So you grit your teeth and lock that monster away. Not to punish the person across from you, but because you cherish the connection so deeply that you refuse to destroy it in a moment of wild agony. In psychology, there is a concept called the window of tolerance, a safe emotional threshold where people can actually listen and understand each other. Once you are pushed outside that window, drowning in panic and pain, communication becomes useless. Your intuition naturally recognizes this, which is exactly why you choose to step back. Your silence, as maddening as it may be to others, is often the most fiercely protective and graceful act of love you know how to offer. You aren't avoiding the conversation. You are simply waiting until you are genuinely capable of engaging in it kindly. Ironically, the outside world constantly throws cold water on your quiet kindness. They corner you, follow you from room to room, pound on the door, and hurl accusations like you're so heartless. How long are you going to keep this up? Every scream of pressure validates the toxic childhood belief that your way of processing pain is inherently wrong. What you truly need in those moments is the hardest thing to ask for: patience without pressure. You need someone sturdy enough to sit beside you in that heavy silence, without judging, without rushing, simply offering their presence. Research shows that when inward processing people feel zero pressure to perform their emotions, they open up exponentially more, not because they were forced, but because dropping their shield no longer feels life-threatening. You aren't demanding that people read your mind. You are simply begging for a little faith, the belief that your silence isn't abandonment, but the only pathway you know to return to your grounded self. The people who truly deserve to stay in your life will eventually learn to respect that. Furthermore, there is something incredibly beautiful about you that rarely gets talked about. Once the words finally manage to scale the fortress of your silence and leave your lips, they carry the weight of solid gold. You have weighed and measured every single syllable 100 times over, refining them through fairness, truth, and compassion. You never say things you don't mean. You never weaponize your feelings to win a cheap argument. When you look someone in the eye and tell them exactly how you feel, it is never a wild reflex. It is a definitive verdict filtered through countless sleepless nights. In today's rushed world, that level of intentionality is incredibly rare. You choose to say less, but every word you speak contains absolute, unfiltered truth. The ones who have loved you patiently enough know this deeply. When you finally say something, it matters. It is a matter of life and death. That isn't emotional bankruptcy. That is emotional integrity, the nobility of a highly sensitive soul. When you piece all of this together, a brilliant and complete picture of who you truly are emerges. You go quiet when you are hurt because your nervous system is working overtime to protect you. Because your childhood taught you that vulnerability is dangerous. Because your brain is diving into depths of analysis most people will never reach. And most importantly, because a massive part of you is silently trying to protect the people you love from your own internal wreckage. Hear this loud and clear. You are not cold, not manipulative, not broken, not difficult, and not unworthy. You are simply a human being who feels pain so profoundly that you require time to stitch your soul back together before exposing it to the light. In a society that applauds whoever reacts the fastest and screams the loudest, your quiet, cautious way of moving through pain will always remain a riddle to shallow minds. But for the people born to be in your life, they will learn how to sit and drink tea in your silence without fear. They will understand that your quietness isn't a black hole of distance, but the deepest, most authentic presence of a soul trying to heal itself. And then one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, cracking the door open just a tiny bit while you are still a mess of broken pieces, will feel a little easier. Not because being silent was ever a mistake, but because you have finally found arms safe enough and eyes patient enough to make you realize you don't need to cling to that life raft of silence quite so tightly anymore. That newfound openness isn't a flaw being fixed. It goes by a much more beautiful name. It is called healing. If somewhere deep in your chest right now, there is a quiet sigh of relief, if these words feel like someone just lifted a 1,000-pound boulder off your shoulders and gave you the vocabulary to name the hidden grief you've carried alone for years, then the ice inside you is already beginning to melt. Take a pause. Take a deep breath. Acknowledge your own immense courage for daring to face these dark corners. And if you want to continue this journey of unraveling the breathtaking mysteries of the human mind, stay connected. Your silence was never a prison. It was a lifeline. But perhaps, you have finally reached the shore.